Hi marketing leader, you didn't expect me here, did you? Maybe Thomas is too energetic for you, or maybe he's not funny enough, then I'll sort that out for you. Today we have a topic that bothered us for quite some time, and that's cookies in the UK and the regulations, GDPR and stuff like that. We wanted to A/B test our website to just find out what works and what doesn't, just to improve it for you, for others, and quite frankly we almost can't do this, but we have sorted that out, so don't worry, I'll tell you all about it. One disclaimer that we have to make, unfortunately, we are not lawyers, so this is not legal advice, obviously, but we have worked diligently with the ICO here in the UK, who is the regulator for cookies, GDPR, the privacy laws in the UK, so we did our best to learn what is allowed and what isn't, and that's gonna be in here. For the global audience that we have on YouTube, you won't be fully left out. It's mostly about the UK, but we have examples of France and other European countries. And as for America, well, you guys love your cookies over there, don't you? And the Girl Scouts and all of that. Basically in America, you can do anything, so tough luck. If you don't want people tracking you, they will track you. So first, the biggest thing, here in the UK, when a user goes to your website for the first time, you can only preload strictly necessary cookies. And now that definition is not flexible, it's very strict, and that's basically only those cookies that are strictly necessary for the website to function. So as an example, e-commerce store owners, you can use cookies to remember the cart, right? You go shopping on Amazon, you add things to cart, you go back, you still have them in there, that's allowed. But any analytics, pixels that track your Google Ads conversions or LinkedIn, not allowed at all. Next, once you've complied and you are not loading the cookies by default, then you need to obtain positive opt-in from the user. And what is that? Well, they need to actually click the things and select the things that they agree to. You can start with accept all button, but when you manage settings and then you see necessary cookies, analytics, marketing, blah, 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 then all of those except for necessary have to be unselected. The user has to actively click on that thing and select that to confirm their choice of cookies. I think from the previous 2 points that I've made, you can now realize that just showing a message, hey, on the bottom, hey, we are using cookies, and then you can only click yes or yes, that's not allowed. So don't do that. You can see it all over the internet. Well, basically that's illegal, or at least against the guidance. I'm not sure if it's strictly a law, but there's guidance based on those regulations. You can't do it. Now the next thing, you will be tempted to push users towards that accept all button. Well, aren't we all? We want to use those analytics, track our Google Ads. That's not exactly legal either. When you have 2 buttons that say accept all and deny, they need to be identical. You can't have one full bright red and another one just white outline, just hidden somewhere to the side. No, they have to be identical and ideally very close to each other. Whoa, so we are on the 4th point now and we still haven't accepted any cookies. That's because you are not allowed to have your overlay with cookie consent block your website. The user needs to be able to use that site without dismissing that pop-up, and that pop-up cannot be overly intrusive, so they should be able to use it just fine without clicking that X or deny or accept. So go to your website right now, check it out. Can you use that, or is that site blocked from scrolling altogether? It shouldn't be like that. When we are on that point, they also need to be able to access your cookie policy right away. So that's also part of why you don't want to block that access, because they might be looking for the cookie policy just to know what are you using those for before they make the decision. I guess not everyone does that, I certainly don't, but it makes sense, right? I want to know how you track me before I sell my soul to you. And on that point, you cannot expect users to accept cookies to use your site. So you know paywalls, cookie walls exist as well here in the UK. Nope, you can't use them. So let's take a little break from the UK and talk about all the other countries. Mainly 2 examples. One will be very brief, that's Germany. If you are playing video games, you know they are quite strict with their laws, and until some years ago they didn't allow games with blood in them. You had to censor that or just not sell the game in there. So that was awful for those German gamers. Now France is completely on the opposite of the spectrum. So you have Germany, very strict, UK somewhere in the middle. France France is, I think, quite frankly, they're great at this. Not so long ago, they have made an exception that analytics can be used as preloaded cookie. You don't have to obtain consent for them. And UK and France are usually regarded as the gold standard in the Europe for cookie regulation. And I'm not sure why it's different in the UK, but in France you have a bit more flexibility, and it does make sense, doesn't it? It's useful knowing those stats to make the website better for people. Obviously, you will always have people with ill intent, so they will use that to their advantage, just to sell more, I don't know, trick you into buying because of those stats, put things, make the user experience worse just to gain profit. But yeah, I think it's reasonable to be able to use those analytics tools, especially since they're anonymous. So the intermission is over. Now let's go back to the UK. That applies to other places as well. When you use cookies, you can easily say, well, listen, most of the time I use cookies from HubSpot, Google, Microsoft. Why do I need to get the consent? Why it's not on them? Well, sadly, the regulations state that it's your responsibility to gain consent and to be upfront with the users how those cookies are used. And that's simply for one reason. You can always track the IP address, and you can use that without any ill intent, completely anonymous, randomize it. That's fine. But then you have Google, who has anonymous tracking. Yeah, sure. What does that mean? You are just a randomized number, but you are the same number across multiple sources. So they can easily piece those details, information about you together, and suddenly you would think the IP address is not personal exactly. And on its own, it really isn't. You can have a rough location of the IP, but that's all. But when maybe you will buy data from some shady source on the internet about like entire population of the UK, and you can just make those connections that IP address likes visiting one website, and that leads to another bit of information. So I think you get the point. If you have ill intent, then you can get there. So the regulation is quite strict just to prevent that as much as possible. And that's most of those key points that we have to make. So just to sum it up quickly, one, you need positive opt-in from users. You can't preload cookies for analytics, marketing, all of that. Only necessary cookies to make your website functional. And that also includes communication. So if you need a cookie to exchange messages with the user, live chat, that's okay as well. Everything goes? Nope. Number two, you can't lead the user on, so you can't just push them towards that accept button. It needs to be all uniform, look the same, just give them free will, give them the option to have positive opt-in, not just hidden away and pre-ticked boxes. And number three, your site needs to be fully interactive before users accept that cookie consent, so just go, you can easily check that. Can you read actually that content, or is half of that hidden behind that pop-up? Don't do it. Let users browse it without dismissing the pop-up. Maybe they just can't be bothered. And that's really it. I know you might think like, where's the common sense in that? I'm quite responsible. I don't want to be limited. And frankly, in our example of the A/B testing and stuff like that, businesses are sort of at a competitive disadvantage because of that, right? Not all of the companies comply in the UK alone. So that already puts you a bit behind them because you can't test while they just ignore the regulation and do as they please. But second of all, you have France, where you can just legally use analytics right away. So if you are a global or European even business, then you are already at a disadvantage when you compete with them. So I guess that's a question of morals. That's up to you. So I'd like to extending my thanks to the ICO team and to Matthew at ICO for their help. It took some time because of their legal obligations. They are not always in the position to give you a definitive answer, and some of that is up to your interpretation because only you know how you handle that data. But they've helped us tremendously, not only this time but also in the past, like a year ago when we were in the same situation with just cookie consent, so with the baseline. And what about you? Have you had any issues with cookies? Maybe legal trouble? I hope not. I don't think anyone has been fined yet, so don't be the first person. Let me know in the comments if you'd like us to have a quick look at your cookie consent. I can just have a peek and tell you if it's compliant or not, so just drop your links below. Let me know your horror stories if you had one, and see you in the next one.